quick voice note from Laura, shall we, on Tel Aviv?
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. I am so outraged and horrified by this Aston Villa story. A Jewish friend of mine recently said, after the killings in Manchester, that her parents and grandparents always said to her, it'll happen again. And she and her generation and our generation poo-pooed it. And when we studied history at school, we wondered, how did those Germans let that happen? But guess what? It's happening here. It is happening here, and it has to stop.
Yeah, I think it's a very slippery slope. We'll come back to that story, of course, later on with Dan Hodges when he's going to be joining us with John Rentoul now. This one from Lee in Ormskirk, who says this, John. Did John Rentoul seriously just say a party manifesto is government policy? Where's he been for the last 40 years? Never mind just the last one. Why does this man always defend the indefensible? There you go. Why do you always defend the indefensible? Shocking.
Well, because it's such fun, Mike, because it annoys your viewers and listeners so
It does. It does actually do that, yeah.
I mean, no, all I was doing was explaining the principle of parliamentary democracy, which is that parties put their programme to the country, the voters vote for it, and then the civil service, the impartial civil service, implements government policy. I mean, that is how democracy works.
Well, that may well be the case.
I know your listener there is making a different point, which is that parties always break their promises.
They do, but this is also true.
Well, up to a point. I mean, you know, some governments actually do what they say. I mean, I don't want to mention Tony Blair on your
Not many.
That'll just drive your.
Well, no, you can mention Tony Blair. It was a very long time ago. There'll be some people listening to this show who don't even remember when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. You know, but the point is that, you know, unfortunately, it's an exception rather than the rule. I would say that governments actually do what they say on the tin, and that when they get in, they actually don't bother doing any of it. But what I was going to tell you about was a story about me calling Keir Starmer a liar. And Downing Street actually complained about it, right? They sent a complaint to my bosses to say that it was disgusting that I kept calling him a liar, because he wasn't. And I said, well, the fact is I wouldn't call him a liar if he wasn't, and that's entirely my prerogative to do so. So I then thought, well, here's what I'll do. I'll ask other people if they think he's a liar. So have a look at this.
We actually had a video of how many times he had told lies at the dispatch box.
So it sounds like you do believe that he's a liar, though.
Yeah,
he is. So then we sent them that, and they haven't complained since. He's frozen. Don't tell me he's frozen. He's bloody frozen after all that. After that big build-up. All right, we'll come back to it. Oh, my God, John lives in the Doris Day film of politics. He just thinks it's all a joke. That real to the everyday person living with Labour's lies, says Debbie. We'll get him back in a second. But, yeah... here's what we should do. Should we not play a clip from Rachel Reeves saying the economy's growing? Check it out.
Britain's economy is growing again. We led the G7 in terms of growth in the first half of this year, and the IMF, who is the world's most foremost economic forecaster, has just revised up growth for the UK for a second time in a row. Over the last few months, incomes have been rising faster than inflation, but I know that the impact of price rises in the last few years is still taking its toll on people, and there's more that we need to do. More we need to do so that the economy and people's living standards don't feel so stuck. And that's why, as a government, we are working to keep inflation and interest rates as low as possible.
Rachel Reeves thinks the economy's growing again. Have we got anybody at the back there who'd like to contribute to this conversation? Because I don't think I can find anyone in this country that thinks the economy's growing, because everything is shrinking. The only thing that's growing is unemployment. 123,000 more people now unemployed than there were when the Labour government got in. We also now know that inflation is growing because things cost an awful lot more. The cost of living is growing, but I'll tell you what is not growing, and that is the economy. I think we got you back, John. I don't know how much of that you managed to hear, but
well, I got as far as Kemi using the L word, which, as you know, I don't agree with politicians calling each other liars.
Doesn't make it untrue, though, does it?
No, but that's not the point. That's not my point. My point is they shouldn't be insulting each other, and it doesn't persuade people of the reasonable case that they're trying to make.
Well, how would you deal with a politician who doesn't tell the truth about something? Then, what would you say to them?
I would point out what the truth is, and
well, then you have to call them a liar.
That they've made a mistake.
Well, if you say that somebody's not telling the truth, that's the same as calling them a liar, isn't it?
No, it's not. No.
How is it not?
It's a very basic issue, Mike. You know, lying is a deliberate untruth. What you do is you.
Oh, so if you tell the truth, if you don't tell the truth by accident, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that quite often happens in life.
I don't think Keir Starmer does it by accident.
No, but my point is that if you're seeking to persuade people, which is what politicians are trying to do in this world, you don't persuade them by insulting your opponents or calling them liars. What you do is you suggest that they may have inadvertently misled people.
But don't you insult your audience though if you're not telling?
Made a mistake.
But if you're not telling the truth, are you not insulting your audience? I mean, if I sat here every day and just talked to a load of old cobblers, right, people wouldn't believe a word I said, and therefore it would be doing a disservice to the people I'm talking to.
No, but the only people who would agree with Kemi that Keir Starmer is a liar are people who've already decided that they hate Labour and
not true.
Prime
No,
Minister.
not true.
And they, yeah.
No, not true.
It is true. You're never going to change anybody's mind.
Do you know how unpopular Keir Starmer is, right?
Yes, of course I do.
Do you know that at Sky Sports they have to actually turn down the volume on the audience at the darts because they keep chanting Keir Starmer's a word that we can't say at this time in the morning. They're chanting it literally everywhere he goes. I mean, we've got a video.
He's the most unpopular Prime Minister
and there's a reason, but there's a reason for that. The reason is not because people have been told to hate him. People have learned that they don't like him because of the things that he said, which have turned out not to be true. And I think that's part of the problem. People don't trust him because he doesn't tell the truth.
Well,
which is more or less a nice way of me saying he's a liar.
Yeah, but I don't think you should say that, and I don't think Kemi should either.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a new word.
You should point out what the facts are.
Yeah.
You should draw people's attention to the facts.
That's what I do.
Has said the opposite.
Yeah.
But what do you gain by by calling him a liar?
Well, I don't just call him a liar. I mean, I explain why I think that he's telling lies.
Well, in that case, just drop the L word.
All right. Well, I've got a new word for you.
That's my advice.
I've got a new word that I'm going to call him from this point on because we discovered this earlier this week because he actually suffers from a psychological condition which is called mythomania. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But he's actually a mythomaniac, if you like, and a psychological condition which is characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive.
I remember all this. I remember David Owen, diagnosing Tony Blair as suffering from some kind of medical condition, which meant that he was a liar. I think it's just a way. It's just a fancy way of calling someone a liar. It's just an insult. It doesn't help. It doesn't help the tone of politics. It doesn't advance reasonable debate. And I think people should can it.
Well, what about when you get somebody like Keir Starmer having a go at Nigel Farage and calling him names?
No, I don't agree with that either.
He shouldn't do it.
No, absolutely. But what did he call him? He didn't call him a liar, though, did he?
No, he didn't call him a liar, but he's called him dangerous. He's called him a snake oil salesman. He's called him all sorts of different insults, which I can look up if you want. But, when he made his speech at conference, when he rallied the troops, as it were, and he said, we have to fight...
He called him a racist.
He called him a racist.
I don't agree with that either.
So, he should first teach by example, shouldn't he? If he doesn't want to be called a liar, then first stop telling lies, and secondly, stop calling people names.
Yeah, no.
Maybe you should tell him that, not me.
I want respectful and courteous politics.
Yeah.
I think
that's we have it here, John.
Ourselves.
We have it here.
Well, no, you don't, because you call people liars, and I think that
only if they are. If they're a liar, I'm going to call it out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but it's very difficult to be sure that someone is lying because you have to be able to see inside their mind.
Not in Keir Starmer's case, because I know very well that he's a liar. I can give you plenty of examples, like, for example, the time he said, I'd like my friend Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister. And then a couple of years later, he said, Jeremy Corbyn was never my friend. So when was he lying? Which one of those was a lie?
Well, he could have changed his mind.
Changed his mind? Well, no, because if he changes his mind and says, he's not my friend now, that's not the same as saying he was never my friend, which is what he said. He said he was never my friend, whereas before he said he was my friend. So that's a lie, isn't it?
No, not necessarily. It could just be that he was being polite before, and he decided not to be polite anymore.
No, it was if I said to you, for example, I never had you on my show, right? That would be a lie, wouldn't it?
Well, no, it wouldn't. It would be untrue. I mean,
it's the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. Because it depends why you are. Why
are you so frightened of the word lie? Why does it worry you so much?
It doesn't. I'm not frightened of it. It doesn't worry me. I'm just telling you that it's not a good thing to do because it doesn't persuade people who might be persuaded, and it's not polite, and it lowers the tone of debate.
Well, yeah, but so does lying. Lying lowers the tone of debate, because if you tell lies, then I'm afraid
but the
your
way to-
case...
but the way to deal with it is...
You cannot make a case in any reasonable way if you are not telling the truth. Did you agree with that?
Completely agree. And the way to deal with that is to point out politely what the truth is.
Okay, how about this? Have a look at this clip and then tell me if this is a lie. Oh, we haven't got the clip, sorry.
No.
This is when he said that he would not put another penny, not a penny more on your council tax. That's what he said just before the election. And then as soon as he got in, council tax went up.
Yeah, but that's not a lie. He didn't intend at the time necessarily. You don't know.
Well, it's meaningless.
He intended at the time to put a penny on council tax.
Okay.
He probably living in his politician's dream world. He probably thought he would.
Well, why say it?
He'd be able to solve all these problems.
But why say it then?
Well, because he wanted to get elected.
Yes. So it's a lie in order to get elected, right?
No, it's he thought it was something that he would be able to do. Turned out, of course, he.
I mean, we're never going to get anywhere. But anyway, it's very, very entertaining.